gap and the 5 steps on how to close it. Hopefully, I'm live. Hopefully, there are people out there listening in and can see what this is all about. It's very surreal from this side, just speaking to a laptop without actually being able to see all your faces. But yeah, I'm going to crack on anyway, and hopefully, it goes well. So, first of all, I thought the best thing I should do really is introduce myself because whilst many of you might know me, not everyone will. So, I'm Ed Pennell, and for 18 years, I've been working in recruitment, B2B sales, and marketing across a number of different industries and sectors, actually. But most significantly and most importantly for this conversation is I spent 8 years in franchising, specifically franchise recruitment. I founded The Franchised back in 2022 and have been supporting franchisors ever since, predominantly with their franchise recruitment, helping the franchise brands to show up in the right way online to attract more of their ideal franchisees. So that's us. That's what we do. The agenda for today, I'm just going to go through with you quickly now so you know what to expect and know if you want to duck in and out or come back to certain points of this. So the first thing is how AI is actually impacting franchise recruitment right now. I think it's important to analyze what that looks like and how we can kind of contract. What's the word I'm looking for? Work with it, work against it, leverage it to make it successful for franchise recruitment for our franchise brands. Then we're going to talk about the trust gap, and actually I'll go through and explain what I see that is. We'll then talk about what the winning brands are doing. So the brands that are doing really well, what are they actually doing at the moment? Then I'm going to go through my 5 steps to closing the trust gap. And you'll see on the right-hand side, we're going to go through some of those steps in a PDF afterwards as well, or that will be available to you. But before that, I have a quick special announcement from the franchised. It's relevant to this webinar, by the way. And then I'll share with you how you can get access to the 5 steps to closing the trust gap, a PDF I've put together to hopefully help people that need to just get their head around it, that perhaps couldn't attend the whole webinar on their own. So if I can get the mouse to work and click onto the next page, that'd be fantastic. Here we go. So I don't know if you've experienced or noticed it yourself, but many of the franchise brands that I've been speaking to have identified that there's been a real change over the last 18 months to 2 years. And I think that's because the franchise buyer journey has changed. So the prospects, the leads, the franchise candidates, whatever you want to call them, the way that they're looking at franchise brands has changed. And I think part of that is there's a new type of franchise buyer. So there's a few different factors at play. So with AI coming into play, what's happening is a lot of those senior management roles or analyst roles, some of the kind of middle management roles are basically being made defunct, or their people are kind of getting a bit scared and moving into the market, looking for new opportunities. And so another career move might be an option, but another thing that they're going to be doing is thinking about what's the next step, what else is there available that where I'm not reliant on an employer. So they could be looking at starting their own business, or they could be looking at investing in a franchise. And these types of buyers are more knowledgeable, they're more researched, and they're more selective. And a big part of that is down to the advent, and this really ties in quite nicely with the 18 months to 2 years kind of factor that we're seeing. It comes around with the advent of the LLMs, so the large language models, or as people kind of coin it, AI. So things like OpenAI with their ChatGPT model, Anthropic with Claude, Perplexity, all these kinds of things. People have now got one of the best research tools in their hands that they can use on a daily basis. And especially those that have come from the business world, they're used to using tools like these. Why 18 months to 2 years? Well, I think obviously these were coming out maybe 3 or 4 years ago, some of these platforms, but it takes a little while for people to actually get up to speed and get to grips with how to use them effectively. And I think we've got to that point now where a lot of people do know how to use them. And it's not just which is the best franchise in the UK they're going to be searching. They're going to be asking questions that are very specific to themselves. So it's not what is the best, I don't know, if we're looking at something on Amazon, what is the best lawnmower out there? It's what's the best lawnmower for me with my small garden and trees that are full dropping leaves and whatever it is. It's a lot more specific to the individual. And so they're going to start asking questions when they're looking at their career. Things like, how do I replace my income? You're going to ask, what are my options besides staying employed? And what business can I start with £30,000? So if they've already got some savings and they want to start a business, they're going to ask these questions. It's very different to a lot of the questions they might have been asking just Google without the AI element to it. So that's certainly a shift that's changed. And a lot of this is going to change the way that they get responses when they're talking to AI or these LLMs. They're going to start feeding them back specific bits of information that are tailored to them because it can go and search in a number of different places. So, where do LLMs actually search? That's, I think, a question we all need to ask ourselves and be aware of and understand, especially when we're trying to target our prospects. It used to be SEO, so blog articles and things like that worked really well. Articles on our website and getting out there in the press is still relevant today, and I'll come to that in a moment. But we now need to consider. I've heard it called different things: AEO, GEO, things like that. But ultimately, all that's trying to understand is, where do these large language models search? Where does ChatGPT go for its information? Because once you know that, you can then put the right content in front of these LLMs to hopefully feed into the prospects. So I've drawn up a bit of a snapshot here. So there's quite a lot of information on this page, and if you do download the PDF that I've created, this will be in there, so you don't need to grab a screenshot or anything now. You can just grab it from the PDF later. But basically, the AI engine will get the question, and let's say they're asking about a franchise opportunity. It's going to go to um, the website for that brand. It's going to look at the page copy. It's going to look at the schema markup. It's going to look at the blog articles. It's going to go on social media to look at the posts and articles on there, company page content. It's going to go into the press and look for news articles, features, and awards. It's going to look on YouTube. So if you've got YouTube, basically YouTube automatically transcribes any videos you put on there. So it will go through all of your YouTube content and try and understand or find the information that it's looking for. And that's the same with social media as well. Anywhere where it automatically creates a caption for you. So when you upload a video and captions are automatically created or available to the audience, ChatGPT, Claude, all of those LLMs can search on those transcripts and use those transcripts to feed that information into the user. Podcasts, the same as well. Platforms like Spotify will automatically transcribe your conversations, but also in those show notes as well. So basically, anywhere it can find copy. And I've left the directories to last because I think there's, and I've been part of that conversation. This thought of, they're not that great. You shouldn't be using them that much. The leads that come through from there don't always convert that well. It's quite expensive. And agreed on a lot of those points, actually. But what LLMs will do is it will weight certain resources more than others. The directories are a great source for them to go to look at multiple franchise brands. So if you say, I'm interested in a franchise that gives me great flexibility over hours, it's working within the kids education sector or kids activity sector, these kinds of things, it's going to go to that directory and find which is the best. There's going to be articles on there that's going to be really useful for it. It's going to look at all the listings. It's going to see any reviews, any testimonials. It's a great source for that AI engine to go and actually grab the information. So actually, it weights it towards there because that's an industry voice that the AI engine will trust. And yeah, I think it's important that we, as franchise brands, have a presence on at least one of the more reputable directories, which Might shock some people to hear me say that, because over time I've suggested that maybe in terms of advertising there's up better resources, but certainly from a visibility perspective, it's really important for um, for your franchise when you're considering the AI engines and where they're looking. So that's a lot of different places, right, where it's going round, and in almost an instant. So you can see why people might use it to do their research. So here's a few things that it's ranking, just as a quick snapshot for you. I think I've covered bits of this, but one of the interesting ones is it's looking clear answers to real questions. Those questions we talked about, people typing in, where can I invest £30,000 to start a business, or how? What's the best way to spend that £30,000? Maybe that's a question that you can answer for people. It needs to be it needs to be well structured and scannable, so less waffle and more to the point information that's talking to those questions that you know your ideal franchisee is looking for. Um, some real depth, so rather than just kind of surface level stuff, make sure you actually give stats and figures. And we're going to come on to this in a bit more detail. Using real people is important, consistency is important, um, and then anything that's recent and active. So it's going to weight towards something that's been posted more recently than something that's been posted back in 2022, right? Because it's trying to look for the most update answer. As I say, it's going to ignore things like marketing claims that are just, yes, we're fantastic. Um, one of the best franchises in the UK. That's not giving it any specific answer that it can kind of feed back as a really good answer to the user. Over polished brand language, one page explanations. So being more concise, making it easier to read. Um, yeah, inconsistent messaging. So again, you want to review across all of the platforms that you're on, because AI certainly will be going across all those different platforms and trying to identify what is the message for this brand. Anything that's outdated or inactive, that can come as well. So I was speaking to a brand earlier today, and we did a little test using Claude to sort of see what people thought about the brand. What were the pros and cons? And one of the cons was the size of the network. Well, the information that they brought up was actually inaccurate. So, yeah, AI will look at absolutely everything. So you need to review absolutely everything and make sure that everything is up to date. Otherwise, you know, when you're considering how your prospects might now be using AI to as part of their journey, um, yeah, you want the right information going in front of them. So that's really important. And then the final kind of point I wanted to kind of touch on is something that, if you were at the BFA conference back in November, Daniel Priestley brought this up. It's some research done by Google, and they identified that for buyers to build trust and feel ready to invest, especially in higher ticket products, they need to have consumed at least 7 hours of content, had 11 interactions with a brand, and that be across 4 touch points. So that could be, you know, social media, the website, could be a conversation, brochure, whatever it may be, but 4 different platforms, 7 hours worth of content, and 11 interactions as well. So that's quite significant when we're considering, you know, AI built into this as well. It's going to kind of direct people towards those bits of content and help them to consume that information. But all of this, I think, is telling me that trust is now being built before the inquiry. And that's a really important thing to consider, because it's no different to what it's been in the past, right? It's crazy, right? There's lots and lots of marketing people who have said the same thing for years, right? So Seth Godin, famous marketer, um, says earn attention before you ask for action. So before the inquiry, before you ask for people to reply, earn their attention before you ask for that action, and you're actually more likely to get the right people converting. Gary Vaynerchuk, or Gary V as most people know him, he wrote out a book specifically around Facebook, jab, 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 right hook, and advertising on there. And his theory is gentle first, give them little bits of information, just jab after jab, just let them know that you're there before you come in with the advert. So right hook comes later on. Marcus Sheridan, very relevant right now, especially in the AI era. A lot of people talking about him. They ask, you answer. So it's all about building that trust earlier on, providing them with value, providing them with content before you then come in and hit them with that right hook or ask for action. And it's the same thing that you I can't believe I've put this on a slide, but I've seen it so many times, the marketing funnel. And this marketing funnel, the reason why I've put this old guy here next to the to it is he came up with the idea, the concept back in 1925, St. Elmo Lewis. Ask for attention first, or get the attention first, convert that into interest in the brand, then turn that into desire and action. And advertising, just so you're aware, so those posts that you're putting out there saying, "Hey, we're a great brand. Click here to get access to our brochure." That's all coming in that desire phase. Where AI is operating, or where AI is being used, a lot of the time is in that attention and interest phase. Okay, it's still being used throughout the whole process, desire and action. But you're just advertising. You're missing out on a big part of that funnel. And that's what I'm seeing when I do audits. I do some competitor analysis for brands. I noticed that most franchise recruitment is focusing on advertising. Not every brand's at that point. There's a whole range. Some people are doing things really well and covering the whole of that marketing funnel. Majority, I would say, are just focused in on that advertising. How can we get more leads? So that's an issue, and I'm going to show you why that I think that's an issue. So first of all, the old journey that most people will have gone through before the advent of AI is Google search, right? That's probably the place to go. That's why SEO is such an important factor in franchise recruitment over the years. The person then likely comes across some form of directory, or at least they start to build up a bit of a shortlist. They then move through into that inquiry phase where they fill in a form because they need to find out information because they've done the research they can, but predominantly it's just been adverts. And then after that line, that's when there's a call. So the line represents a call. That's when you can start to then educate them about your franchise opportunity, how it could work for them, what the features and benefits are, that kind of thing. Then you start to build trust, meeting them face to face, inviting them in for a discovery day, introducing them to franchisees, whatever that may be. And that then hopefully converts into a sale. That's pretty standard process for the majority of brands that I'm seeing. But what I think this does is if we look at this graph here, so on the top line, yeah, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but hopefully you can. The orange dashed line, that's the point where somebody is ready to invest. And obviously at the application phase, that line here is that representing where that person is at, that prospect is at, where that candidate's at. It's not going to be very high at this point, right? At the application phase when they've just seen an advert, because people don't like being sold to. We're all a little bit cautious. So there's going to be minimal amount of confidence, right, at this point. It's then going to build because you've put the application in. You might get an email back from them. Maybe it's a friendly email. Maybe it's got a franchise brochure on there. Maybe it's got a few bits of content. Whatever it is, we then get into that first call. And actually, that's when the conversation, the trust starts to build, right? When you can actually speak to somebody, it's real, it's not just somebody trying to, capture your data and spam you with a load of stuff. So that goes up a lot more rapidly afterwards. And what I'm calling the trust gap is this big gap here between the point where somebody's ready to invest and that point of trust where they're at. So that line at the bottom, the blue line, where they're at in that point in time. So as you can see, early on before application, there's not much trust at all. After the application, maybe there's a little bit more. After the first call, you're starting to close the gap fairly rapidly. But I think there's a big opportunity. There's a big missing gap here, especially with AI helping them to find out information where we could be tapping into to build trust early and get people closer to that point that they're ready to invest in the process, in your franchise recruitment process sooner. And because there's AI, it's amplifying that trust gap, right? Because if let's give a scenario. So somebody searches, okay, seeing franchising is a good opportunity for me. What do you think of XYZ brand? If it can only find minimal information and only advertising, it's going to make some assumptions. It's going to say the thing to watch out for this type of brand is this, this, and this. That might be dangerous or something you need to consider and start asking questions about. It might say there are a couple of positive bits. It's fine, but it's not building trust early on, especially if they can't see who's behind the brand and how it's been working for franchisees, that kind of thing. AI hasn't got that information. It can't supply that to them. And we've all built a bit of trust with AI to some degree, right? So, like I say, a bit of an opportunity, unless you're showing up a little bit earlier and that marketing funnel showing up at that attention phase rather than at that desire phase. So this is what I think the actual new journey looks like. Whether we want it to be this or not, this is what's happening. So they'll do their search on AI. It might be through Google AI, it might be through ChatGPT, Claude, whatever it may be. They're starting there and they're starting to learn about what's the right path for them in their career. Not necessarily a franchise all the time, it might be something else, but there's an opportunity for us to be present at that point where they're learning. They're then building trust. So, what the person will then do is take that information that the um, LLM will provide them with, and it normally gives um, links to where it got the information from as well. So, okay, found this on this website or in this directory, go here to take a look. If the person goes there and it's just a big block of text, you're missing an opportunity to build trust with that person. We'll come on how we can tackle that in a bit. They're then going to build up their shortlist of who they want to go and reach out to. They'll then make those inquiries, and that might be through a website, it might be through a directory, it might be through wherever it is. And then the conversation becomes a lot different, right? Once you've got to that point, they've already built the trust. They've already know you're one of the best. It's more about confirming what they've read and understood. So rather than you then needing to sell heavily to them and go through all of that trust building stuff, there's still an element you need to build some trust, of course, after that call. But it's more conversation of them confirming what they feel could be right for them, and yeah, it makes it a different story. It makes it a different journey for them. Um, and most importantly, I think we're all looking to build that trust beforehand. And another reason why I think that's important to think about and consider is that we're all cautious about handing over our details to any brand. If there's a form, we know that we could fill that form in and we are going to be advertised to. We're going to get a load of emails and a load of phone calls from whichever brand it is, and maybe even others if we've not ticked the right box or whatever it is. So people are a little bit more cautious about handing over their details. So trying to build trust in what we're likely to invest our money in or likely to spend our time on is becoming more and more important to us in this AI era. The 7 hours of content, 11 touch points, sorry, 4 touch points and 11 interactions. A lot of those are happening sooner, basically. So I talked about showing up earlier. So how do you actually do that? So this is where I'll actually go through and share with you my 5 steps or process that you can follow, which will help you to start to show up earlier and tackle people or, get in front of those prospects who are in that learning and trust phase. So before they've even made an inquiry with you. But just before I do that, before I dive into it, I just want to show you what some of the winning brands are doing differently. When I've looked at these brands, I've seen that they're doing something right. When I speak to the founders or the people that are working within the companies, they're doing well with the approach that they're taking. So the first thing that they're doing, if we look at Football Fun Factory, for example, they're asking or they're answering questions that their ideal franchisee is probably asking. So how to create a fun environment in grassroots is probably something that, yeah, a dad of a child who's volunteered to be a coach has got themselves into it, but now they're getting a bit sort of more interested. They're running the kids' football club at the weekend or whatever in the evenings, and they're going, "Oh, how can I make this better? How can I make it a much more fun environment?" Well, this video answers it straight away. So if they've gone onto AI, it might bring up that video, send them towards Football Fun Factory. You're hitting that awareness piece at the top of the funnel. If they follow that page, you've then got other videos that can go out on YouTube or off the website where they can go and explore and learn more about the opportunity, moving into interest and desire and things from there. They're advertising them from that off the back of that, if you can retarget those people, it's going to hit a lot harder, of course. They also use real people. So more than loft ladders, it's real people in their environment. So you'll see a lot of the franchisees up in lofts. I think it's fantastic. It's much better than them just sitting in um, a studio environment where they're just getting interviewed and it's all very professional. That's not who they are. They're actually out there with a drill in one hand, doing the work and answering questions at the same time. It builds trust because it's so authentic, because you can see what's actually happening on a day-to-day basis. There's no hiding it, right? You're going to be crawling around in maybe potentially dark and dusty lofts, but you're going to make them look nice. And then finally, they're seen across all platforms. Um, a lot of advice out there says get really good at one platform and then build on it from there, or only focus on that platform. Well, it depends totally where your potential franchisees are, your ideal franchisee avatar is. But if you think they're on 4 platforms, or if you think they're using 5, if you think they're using all of them, go across all of them. If you look at a brand like Jim's Group, they are absolutely fantastic at what they do, and they tackle all those platforms and TikTok. Now they've got the budget to be able to do that, but each piece of content is tailored to that platform as well, which is really interesting. But you'll find out that it's pretty much the same with those other brands as well. They're on all the platforms, so something to consider. And like I say, it's a lot to get through and deliver on. So how do you actually do this? So the first step is to be specific with who your ideal franchisee is. I feel like this is something that everybody knows and that they should know, but what I would emphasize is that you need to be specific, and I mean painfully specific. So whenever I've asked people or franchisors, who is your ideal franchisee, I can almost guarantee that 80-90% of them will say, well, we can kind of take on a few different types of franchisee actually. We could look for somebody from a management type position who's got experience of running a company, looking after P&Ls, that kind of thing. Or we're looking for somebody who's got a passion for this particular business. And that's nice. And there's maybe some others in between that could do it as well. And of course, we're all individuals, so it's quite difficult to pigeonhole us. But if you can be extremely specific and know what are their fears, what are their motivations, um, what are what are the platforms that they use and where do they hang out, so if they're into a particular sport, is it worth looking at, advertising somewhere where that person's going? Like if you've got a new territory and you know that there's X number of sports clubs in the area, be that specific and say, okay, we know that they're going to be in those areas at certain times, maybe evenings and weekends. Is there an opportunity there that we can dive into? Same as online. If we know that they're going to be following particular influencers or going to specific pages or watching specific types of content on YouTube, on LinkedIn, understand all of that, because that will help you then when you're coming to writing or creating content that is going to appeal to them, because it will help you know what what they like and what else is out there, and then where to put all of this content that you're going to be creating. So being painfully specific, narrowing it down to one specific individual is much better than going broad. And another reason for that is if you go broad, you're not going to talk to that person. So they've gone there, you've put it in the right place, but it just says we kind of look for anybody. It does not have the same impact as saying, hey, sports person who's started a club with their kids, who is living in Dover and wants to start something. It feels like they're missing out on um, spending more time with their children, or creating a bigger impact, or earning money off the back of something they love doing. That's going to be way more specific and attention grabbing than we're looking for anybody to join our franchise. So hopefully I've drilled that in to you. Okay. On the PDF, by the way, I've given some suggestions on what those questions you should be answering are at that stage. But there's there's a whole hour or two's worth of diving into stuff to really nail that out. Okay, excuse me. My voice feels like it's going a little bit at the minute, so I might slow it down a little bit and have a few sips of water. But step two, so identify then what those real questions are. So I mentioned it already to some degree. A lot of that's driven by their fears and their motivations. So what skills do you need to run a business? Can I get a loan to buy a franchise? Are franchises risky? What happens if franchise fails? These are all very franchise specific questions here, but how do you start an Y Z business? So how do I start a coffee shop business is sort of question that somebody is going to be asking. They're going to be using um, the LLMs to answer. So how do you come up with this list of questions that's really relevant to your brand? So one thing you can do is just go on to autocomplete. So Google and type in um, coffee shop franchise and then see what Google suggests is what people have been typing in. That's one way to do it. It's not that effective, but you never know. It might come up with some ideas that you haven't thought of. Answer the public. And the other one also asked, these are a piece of software. You go on there and say to them about a particular topic. So let's say it was coffee shops or coffee shop business. You type that in and it will then look at what people are actually searching for on Google and give you the responses or the questions that they're actually asking. So it's kind of shortcutting that autocomplete bit. But that's a really good source to then come up with, okay, well, here's 10 questions I need to answer with the content that I create. Uber Suggest and SEMrush. So these are SEO keyword sources. So they will help you to identify what keywords are relevant. Can be quite technical and challenging to wrap your head around. Normally need a subscription for these things as well. So might not be somewhere you're likely to go to. Good one would be to look at what questions you're being asked by prospective franchisees already in your pipeline. So if they're all asking the same thing, like how long does it take to for me to get my money back? Well, maybe that's a question you should be answering at the front end because they're likely to be asking it all the way through the journey, not just after the inquiry. So the final one, and this is probably the easiest one to do, and what I'd recommend most people should do is just ask ChatGPT or Claude. Just put it in there and say, what type of questions are franchisees going to be asking about my brand? And then that's a really good starting point for, okay, this is the content we need to create. Okay, hopefully that's clear. So step 3, talking about making things clear, answer those questions clearly. And what do I mean by that? I mean, be really honest. So don't just focus in on the exciting stuff. Saying, that we've been around for 20 years, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. But be really specific about with these people. Talk about what's difficult, share who it isn't for, address the questions that they're slightly afraid to ask. So what happens if it fails would be a really good question, right? What if I start a business and it all goes wrong? What happens then? Answering those questions when ChatGPT or Claude give their answer, it's going to say, but there is a risk that you might fail in business, but this is what they say is an exit strategy, or this is how you prevent that from happening. It's going to take that information. It's going to be really useful to the prospect and to the LLMs. So an example might be great earning potential. It's pretty vague, and how honest is that being with that individual? It's kind of just being super vague, so you don't have to be honest, right? Instead, it took most of our franchisees 3 to 6 months to replace their income. That's being really honest. It gives some actual hard facts that the AI can use in its comparisons with other brands, or in deciding whether or not this is the right opportunity for that specific individual who might not have enough money to survive for 3 months, or they've got money to survive for 12 months without income, and actually this fits pretty well for them. So yes, be honest. Also be specific. I touched on that a little bit there. So talking about actual costs, timelines, earning ranges, what happens in week 1, what happens in week 3, what happens in month 3, answer those questions with specific information. So again, what that might look like is full training provided is how we've probably always done it over time, but instead being specific and saying you'll get 5 days of hands-on training plus 2 weeks of launch support plus weekly calls for 90 days. Whatever your support program looks like, be ultra specific with it. That information is going to be fed into the prospect from AI, ChatGPT, all that stuff. I don't know what to call it. There's so many different names for these things. I don't know if I should just say LLMs and hope you all understand that, or I'll give you specifics. But hopefully, you get where I'm coming from with all this. And then the final piece around this is be human. So AI is fantastic at creating videos for you if you really wanted to. I would steer clear of that as much as you can. Try and create content where it's coming directly from founders, from your team, from franchisees. Get pictures of them, get videos of them. Keep the language natural or something that suits your ideal franchisee. And show real moments that are happening, not just kind of the polished talking head videos. They're good and they've got their place, but I would say if you look at the BFA conference, the moment when most people engaged and really enjoyed the videos on screen were when real moments happened. So when there was bloopers, or if you were there when Pip was getting agitated with driving, or a little bit scared with Theo's driving, those kinds of things are the bits that make people really engage and pay attention, because those are the human bits. We're all imperfect individuals, and yeah, it shows that content can be trusted. If it's clean and polished and it's AI created content, trust goes down, because you don't know what's behind it. It feels like it might not be real because you can't evidence it. We're looking for moments of trust, things that we can hang on to, things that we can emotionally connect with. And AI is not something at the moment we can connect with that emotionally, right? So yeah, use real people where you can, because that's going to connect so much better. And that's the same for imagery as well. Avoid stock imagery where you can, unless it's cleverly put into what you're doing somehow. But majority of the time, stock images of people sitting by a desk shaking hands, or someone in front of a shop front with an apron on, all these classic stock imagery, I'd avoid it like the plague, because it doesn't build that trust early on. So an example, scripted brand video where you go through and say all the benefits, but instead something that's going to connect better is the founder saying, we got this wrong at the start, here's what we changed. It's going to grab people's attention a lot more. So you probably sort of noticed I've hinted towards it, but I'd use video where possible. And I prioritize things like frequently asked questions. So using LLMs, or those questions that people are asking you during conversations, create that list, create videos that answer them. Objection handling. So if you know why people are not going forwards in the process for whatever reason, okay, well, it's going to take me too long before I see a return on investment, or any of those things. What if I can't do it? Answer those objections. Franchisee stories, real franchisee stories, and what an actual day looks like for the franchisee. Prioritize creating that type of content. The other thing which videographers won't love me saying, and as a brand that creates video content, probably I shouldn't be saying so much, but you can just create content using a mobile phone. I'd prioritize creating long form videos that you can use throughout the recruitment process, that may be 5 to 10 minutes, but I wouldn't use them on socials. So create something that then can be clipped down into 60-second clips for social media. Basically, audio is almost more important here. So any kind of camera plus decent audio is better than something that's overproduced and polished. Overproduced and polished quite often will signify to the individual that this is a sales message that I'm getting served up. If it's more walking around the streets with your phone chatting into it, that's a bit more natural. You can tell, and you can tell when someone's talking from the heart, right, rather than something that's more scripted. So yeah, keep it nice and simple with those, within those parameters. And why video? Why video works so well? So communication is something that I've been trying to get my head around and learn. I think it's one of the most important skills that in an ever growing technological world is so important. All the while there are human beings buying stuff from human beings. Communication is the most essential ability, is essential tool that you need. In sales, it might have changed slightly. It used to be bashing the phones and strong arming people into it. Nowadays, it's more kind of supportive and guided kind of approach sales, but it still needs a good communicator to get those messages across. Now, trust grows as communication becomes more human. So, what I mean by that is face to face. You can't beat that in terms of building trust with somebody, in them, bringing them closer towards that line where they're ready to invest. Face to face is going to win every time. So if you can get in front of them for every single conversation, that'd be great. Not realistic, but that would be really good. The next best thing is video, because you can see the person, you can hear the person, and you can see their mannerisms, their tone, and all of that kind of stuff. Behind video then is audio, because you can still hear the inflection in their voice and the way that they're speaking. Written then is next, things like blog articles and stories, ads and static content. Like I say, people are knowing that they're going to get pitched to, so they don't build trust as much. So the further to the right we can get, closer to that face to face at each step, the better. So video, for doing it at scale, is your best option. The other thing is it works across the whole journey, right? So if you go and create one long form video and plan it out, know what you're going to say roughly, what points you're going to touch on. You can maybe have some specific questions preloaded that you're going to answer, but just deliver them in an authentic way, of course. But that can then produce video clips, great for social media and YouTube. You could even use them in your nurture campaign, right? Like, so if somebody applies and you send them a list of emails for the next 12 weeks, for example, those clips could go one on each one, perhaps. So that's a really useful way to use those video clips. Audio, you can obviously take that long form video and turn that into a podcast, or people are talking about private podcasts, but wherever you want to put it on the audio side, that's really good. It's really personal as well. When you're in somebody's ears, it's a bit of a weird expression, but when they can hear you while they're doing their day-to-day tasks, and that might be, they're doing the cleaning, the gardening, whatever it is, they hear you regularly, or they're listening to 10 of your episodes, they get to know you, they start to build some of that trust, of course. So that's a really powerful way to use that long form video, is turn it into an audio podcast. The transcripts, so you can actually download that transcript and you can turn them into blog articles, create newsletter emails, put them into your nurture campaign, create articles off the back of it that you can send out to the directories and places like that. You can even then, if you've perhaps used created a video with a franchisee, you can turn it into a quote library. So just say, find all the good quotes in that video, in that recording, and turn that into a quote library that you can use later on in marketing across your whole marketing suite. In the brochure, on the website, on slide decks, wherever it may be. And then finally, video, you can use screen grabs. So instead of having a photographer separately there as well, you just take screen grabs. So just pause the video. There's cutting tools, or if you're going to use something like Premiere Pro, you can do a screen grab from there. And that can then be used for thumbnails for all of those YouTube videos. But also you can turn them into images that can be used everywhere as well. So one 5 to 10 minute video can produce so much content off the back end of it. Step 4 then, where to put it so that AI can find it. And ultimately where decisions are made, right? Where people decide whether or not they want to reach out and have a conversation. So you can probably guess all this already, right? So I'm just going to skip through some of this: website, franchise directories, sales process, YouTube, social media. All of those places are where you put this. Again, I'll put this into the well, this is in the PDF, so you'll have a copy of that when you download it. So then finally, step 5, it's review, refine, and then review again. So basically what I'm saying is analyze, track performance, and then optimize based on the results. So when you're looking at your content, you're going to look at things like video views and watch time to make sure that that content is interesting and relevant, organic and AI search traffic, social reach and engagement. So I'm conscious of the time. We've got 15 minutes left and I've got a fair few slides left to go through, which hopefully they're all valuable. But again, a lot of this will be in the PDF. Inquiry quality as well. So, how many inquiries are you getting over time? Has that increased? Has it stayed level? What's changed? This one, and you might look to grade the candidates as well. So quality of the candidates coming through. So you might say somebody who's an A grade candidate is somebody who's done all the research and they've said, I watched the video from XYZ franchisee. It was really interesting. Could you tell me more about their operation? Start tracking those and you'll see if the volume's going up or down over time. And then conversions. So the other area where a lot of this content will be leveraged and used is during the conversion. So from inquiry to actual signature. So let's say we've had a discovery call and it's gone really well. We've got a video that we know talks to the prospect's fears. They've said, I'm a little bit worried about not being able to generate business. Okay. If you've got a franchisee video that says, I was a little bit worried before I started about generating business, but the support and training was fantastic and it allowed me to, bring on X number of customers within a month. Fantastic. Share that with them. And so it's all trust building content, but you'll start to see your conversion rates increasing over time as well. And if you do this well, you're going to result in better inquiries, more informed conversations, improved conversion rates, and hopefully faster decisions. So it all builds into it. The more you can build that trust, the more you can bring that line up, the more it's going to work better for your franchise recruitment overall. And as a kind of example of a brand that's done it fantastically well, I interviewed Joel Kleber, who's the chief marketing officer for Jim's Group. I can't remember how many franchise brands they've got under that umbrella, but they recruited 2,000 franchisees within 6 years, predominantly using podcasts, videos, and content first approach to marketing. One of his franchise brands, I mean, they're getting leads at 25 Australian dollars per lead, and they're converting something like 1 in 7 of them. I can't remember what he said on one of my LinkedIn posts, but it's insane. They're doing fantastically well, and what's driving that is this building trust early approach. If you want to watch that interview, that QR code is there on screen so that you can take a look. If not, feel free to go to the franchised YouTube channel and you'll see it on there along with some other videos, the franchise podcast in particular. George Pomfret, I've had a conversation with him. He's on there as well. Really interesting chat. So yeah, go to the YouTube channel and see what Joel was doing and why it's worked so well for them. But let's be honest, here's what's likely to happen, because I guess what I'm telling you is not anything particularly or wildly different to what marketers have been telling you forever. Build awareness, get your brand out there, and then come in with sales messages afterwards. It's nothing groundbreaking, right? But the problem is you're going to start strong. Content then becomes inconsistent. It's all good intentions. Yeah, I'm going to post every day, or we're going to do this. But then something happens, life, business, needs some attention, franchisee needs a bit more support, it's a legal case, whatever it may be, it takes your attention away. Videos then stop getting made, and then ultimately you end up being pretty much back at square one, right? And it's not because you're not motivated. It's ultimately because there's no structure in place. And the thing is, you need structure to be consistent. And we learned earlier that consistency is really important, especially for the LLMs to go out there and find that information. But also, once that person has been maybe directed to your site or to your brand, um, that they go on there and see that, you know, your shop front, whatever that may be, your social media channel, YouTube channel, your website actually has, fresh cakes in there rather than stale cakes that have been there for 3 years. I like to think of it as like a bakery shop front, right? If there's empty shelves, you're not likely to go into the shop, are you? You're going to go to the shop that has got, you know, fresh, delicious looking cakes on the shelf or in the window in the shop front, and its display. It's going to be enticing to make you want to come inside. So keeping that updated regularly is really important, and you need structure to be able to do that. So how to build that structure? There's three different ways. So I think you can do it yourself, but of course that's reliant on you and your time, and being consistently available requires a lot of skill sets to consider. How these engines are searching, and what type of content to create, how to use the camera, what imagery is going to work, how to write the copy effectively. And so you can understand why it's difficult to maintain long term. That said, if you've got a team internally that can do it already, all of those things, fantastic. You might be able to do this already. Look at the Football Fun Factory, and yeah, that's a team of people that are working together to deliver that content. So it's doable, if you've got the right resources. The other option is to hire a content creator. So you can contract somebody in, or you could employ them. If you're going to employ them, the salaries typically are around 30 to 35,000. Really good for execution. So they're there and available more often than any other option, really. The problems come in sometimes where they're not necessarily a strategist themselves, and the output stops if they leave. You've got to replace them. So yeah, there's the 30 to 35 plus all the taxes and national insurance and all that kind of stuff. Plus they might leave, but the pros are they're there all the time. They're going to know your brand really well. The final option, or the third option, shall I say, is to look at an external marketing agency. The challenge is a lot of them will be generalists by default. They're working across different sectors and industries, and so don't necessarily know and understand franchising specifically. But if you can find a marketing agency that does specialize in franchise recruitment, of course, they're going to know the industry pretty well and know how to structure and build out this content for you on a regular basis. And that's where I introduce, of course, the Franchise Trust Engine. So this is the flagship service from the franchised. It's something I've been working on over the last 6 months to perfect, and it's it's based around the 5 steps that we've just gone through. So today is the first day I've really talked about it with anybody. So I've been really excited to get this out here, and it's been a labor of love to get it to this point, but I'm happy to introduce it to you all. So what is the Franchise Trust Engine? So it's a strategic content system that builds trust, attracts the right franchisees, and turns inquiries into signings. Everything we're looking to do within franchise recruitment ultimately. So if we look at that trust gap between when people are just advertising and being ready to invest, we've got the trust gap. What we're looking to do is close that trust gap earlier on by creating that content before an application to build more trust before they even get onto that first call, giving you plenty of content, or your prospects plenty of content to review and consider, bringing them closer to that ready to invest level, almost before they've even spoken to you. You can see the line's a lot higher there. We do that with our 5-step process. I call it calibration, configuration, capture, circulation, and conversion. Ultimately, going through those 5 steps, but guided by me and the team to get you the results that drive you, your ideal franchise partners, into conversations and converting sooner. Again, this will be in the PDF, so I'm not going to leave it on here for too long. We've only got 5 minutes. All right. What we typically deliver, just as a kind of a rough idea for you. So if we looked at this as a 12-month project, you're likely to get something like 20 videos, long form videos out of it, 120 clips for social media, tailored thumbnails for each of those videos, at least one or two per video, until we're getting them, precisely right and working well for people actually viewing the video content on YouTube. Um, Professional photos, so we'll do photography whilst we're on site as well. Blog articles, and a content library that you can dip into as and when you need to for additional content, things like that quote library that I talked about as well. We film that across the year with planned filming days that are structured and designed to minimize the time and input from your side, but maximize the output and effectiveness within your franchise recruitment process. I'm predominantly the main strategic mind behind the whole thing. So we'll work closely together in those early phases of the 5 steps. But I then have a team that work with me to deliver the content. So videographers, photographers, copywriters, an SEO and YouTube specialist, all that kind of good stuff that individually we come together as one to replace the content creator or team of people on your side. Again, I'm kind of doubling up on what I've said already. We then take that content and put it into the right place for you. So we either guide you through that process and say, here's where this piece of content needs to go. And you'll get a schedule for social media as well, saying, here's the content, here's the copy, this is where it needs to go. Or we can do it as a team for you and place it onto all those platforms or throughout your marketing as is required on an ongoing basis. So who is it for? Well, it's for franchisors who are serious about building a franchise brand that targets their ideal candidates and takes this seriously. It takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to build content consistently. The results do come through if you are able to do that, though. But that's why we need brands that are really fully 100% behind the idea. If you're a brand who thinks, okay, we'll try it for a couple of weeks or a couple of months and just see what happens, it's probably not for you. It's something that you need to look at as a medium to long-term strategy that, okay, might not deliver instantly loads of leads, but will ultimately improve your conversion rates over time. So this is the packages that we work on are 12 months for that reason, because you need that time, you need that run up to build up the accelerate, to accelerate to the point where it's operating as a really efficient machine. So yes, we've worked with a number of brands, large brands. I used to work for ERA, but we did some work separately for them outside of that. And I've got a nice quote here, but we've worked with brands like Stagecoach for podcasts, the Cat Butler for social media, It's Easy websites for their YouTube channel. So we're experienced. We've done all of these various different elements and different guises. The franchise trust engine is just bringing all that experience and expertise together in one structured system. So talking about building trust and authenticity, I'm being very open about the pricing as well. So I mentioned the two options before. So done with you, where you post all the content yourselves and upload it yourself, 2,350 per month over 12 months. The done for you, where we post everything, is 2,750 per month for minimum of 12 months. So yeah, at the moment, I've got one brand in the pipeline to potentially become the first pilot. I am looking for another within the next couple of weeks. So if that's you and you want to learn a bit more and understand the franchise trust engine in more detail, feel free to book in a 30-minute call with me. You can either drop me an email at info@thefranchise.com, or a really easy way, as you're on LinkedIn already, most likely, just go onto my profile, hit book an appointment, and you'll find a time slot available, hopefully that suits you. And you can, we'll have a 30-minute conversation, see if it makes sense for you. So finally, and I appreciate I haven't had loads of time for questions, but yes, the guide. So it runs through those 5 steps that I've discussed, and it goes into detail. So you don't need the slides from this presentation; they're all within that guide. The QR code's on screen now, so if you click on there, you can go and download it. basically, it just gives you some pointers and goes into a little bit more depth on what I've covered today. But um, yeah, hopefully you found that really useful. I really appreciate everybody who has joined me today. Thank you so much, and yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I've seen it's just 2 o'clock, so I think I've nailed it. But I've seen some few questions coming through, and I'm so sorry I haven't had a chance to answer them. But just to respect everybody's time, what I'll do is I'll go into the comments after this once I've got my breath back, got my voice back, and had a few sips of water. I'll then go on and answer those questions. So keep an eye on that post if you want to know the answer to some of those questions. And yeah, thank you very much. And hopefully look forward to speaking with some of you soon. Have a good day. Take care.